Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We're continuing to learn Hilchos Chol HaMoed, and we are going to be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Tes Vav Amid Beis. So we're continuing in Siman Taf Kuf Mem Dalid, which discusses the dinim of Tzarchei Rabim on Chol HaMoed, when you need to do melachah for the benefit of the public on Chol HaMoed. And we are on Tes Vav Amid Beis with Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber, Berurah u'ma'ayonos shal rabim, water cisterns or water springs that the public uses for their drinking water supply, shenafal behem afar va'avonim, and you have debris, you have dirt, stones that have fallen into the cistern or into the spring, and either it's clogging it up or it's muddying up the water, v'niskalkalu, and now the cistern or the spring has become ruined. Mutar l'sakdam, you're allowed to go ahead and repair them, meaning you're allowed to go ahead and clean them out. Va'afilu ein rabim tzrichim lahem ata, and this is true even if the populace doesn't need this water supply right now. Kevan she'enai maaseh uman. And the reason this is mutter is because over here we're talking about something that's not a maaseh uman. You don't need a craftsman to go ahead and clean out the spring or clean out the water cistern. This is very basic work. So what do we have here? We have a case of tzarchei rabim, and it's only a maaseh hedyot. So if it's a tzarchei rabim and it's only a maaseh hedyot, you're allowed to do it even if it's not l'tzarech hamoed. That's what we learned yesterday. So even though this is not a real tzarech hamoed because it's not a problem right now, maybe everybody has the water that they need. Nobody is coming to draw water right now. It's only a tzarech for achar hamoed. Since it's a tzarchei rabim and it's a maaseh hedyot, it's a mutter. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Tes. V'hu adin, the same halacha would be true. The mutter lasais maaseh hedyot michutz la'ir. You would be allowed to do another maaseh hedyot. Let's say michutz la'ir, outside of the city, chritz, you want to make by virtue of a maaseh hedyot. You want to go ahead and you want to dig out a ditch, sheyavayu hamayim al yadai mehanahar la'ir, so that you're going to divert water from the river outside the city into this ditch, and this ditch is going to allow the water to flow into the city. Kedei sheyishtu b'harvacha, so that there should be plenty of drinking water in the city. V'av shelo yigamer b'mayid, even though the ditch will not be completed until after Yom Tov. You're still allowed to do this. Why? Kevan shehu tzarech rabim. Because again, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with something which is a tzarech for the rabbim. This is to improve the water supply of the public for the rabbim. And it's only a maaseh hedyot. So then it's mutter on Chol HaMoed, even though it's not tzarech hamoed, even though it's a tzarech for la'achar hamoed. V'gam bazeh mutter afilu im kiven melachah b'moed. And this is mutter even if you are mechaven melachah l'moed. Even if you made the plan initially that we're going to go ahead and dig this ditch on Chol HaMoed. When we have time, you're allowed to do that. Even though we've seen many times previously, even when it's mutter to do melachah on Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to be mechaven melachah l'moed. Over here, tzarchei rabim, a maaseh hedyot, you're even allowed to be mechaven melachah l'moed. And, continues the Mishnah Berurah, and it's even mutter, v'yiyah tercha yisera farhesia. It's even mutter if the work is going to be a tercha yisera, and you're going to do it publicly. So what do we see over here? We see over here, tzarchei rabim, if it's something which is only a maaseh hedyot, it's mutter, even if it's a tzarech la'achar hamoed, even if it's something that you're only doing to get the benefit after Yom Tov. It's not a tzarech hamoed. And even if it's a tercha yisera, even if it involves a lot of exertion and a lot of busyness, and even if you're doing it befarhesia, it's all mutter since it's a tzarchei rabim and it's only a maaseh hedyot. Ois Katan Yud, the Mechaber said, Va'afilu ein rabim tzrichim lahem ata, even though it's not a tzarech hamoed, even though they don't need it now. Hainu, says the Chavetz Chaim, the kavanasam b'shvil achar hamoed. I'm sorry. Va'afilu ein rabim tzrichim lahem ata, even though the kavana in doing this work is for after Yom Tov. So this is mamish not a tzarech hamoed at all. Va'afilu hachi hitiru b'meleches rabim. Still in all, this is mutter because it's melachah that's being done with tzarech rabim. And why? For one of the reasons that we said yesterday. Lefisha tzarchei rabim einon nigmarim, because the fact is that the tzarchei rabim, the needs of the public, are not addressed and they're not completed. Elo b'shah shehem b'telim, only during a time when people have off. Umischabrim kulam, and they get together to take care of the needs of the tzibur. So the Chavetz Chaim is saying, why is this mutter? Because tzarchei rabim, when do tzarchei rabim get dealt with? Tzarchei rabim get dealt with when the rabim has time, when everybody is off from work and they can get together and they can analyze the situation and say, okay, we need to dig a ditch to bring water from the river, so now we'll get together and we'll do it. So even though it's not a tzarech hamayid, and even though it's a terchi yisera, and even though it's befarhesia, still in all you're allowed to do it, so long as it's a maaseh hedyot, as long as it's something which a hedyot could do, a non-professional. Now continues the Mechaber. Now the Mechaber says, Aval, however, 3 lines down in the Shulchan Aruch, Aval, however, Lachbar behem boirois mechadosh, to go ahead and dig a new well, which is already a maaseh uman, shehu maaseh uman, that's already the work of a craftsman. Then it depends. Im harabim tzrichim lahem ata, if the tzibur needs this new well on Yom Tov, people are trying to take care of their Yom Tov needs. They don't have enough drinking water. So now the tzibur needs the well now, l'tzarech hamayid, then mutter. That it's mutter, because tzarchei rabim, you're allowed to do even a maaseh uman. So if it's a tzarchei rabim when it's a tzarech hamayid, if it's a tzarchei rabim and it's a tzarech hamayid, you need it for Yom Tov, then you're allowed to do even a maaseh uman. What we were talking about before was they don't need the water now, so it's not a tzarech hamayid. If it's not a tzarech hamayid, then tzarchei rabim amuter a maaseh hedyot. But in this case, the rabim needs it now, so then it's a tzarech hamayid and it's tzarchei rabim. Then even a maaseh uman is muter. And continues the Mechaber, afilu im kivnu malachtan b'mayid, and they're even allowed to plan to do this maaseh uman on Chol HaMoed. They could be mechaven malachta l'mayid. Va'afilu befarhesia, and they could even do it befarhesia or betercha yiserasa, and even with the tercha yisera. But I'm going to continue the Mechaber before we go to the Mishnah Berurah. But v'im ein tzrichim lehemata. But if the populace, if the tzibur does not need this new well now, so it's not a tzarech hamayid, then lo yasu. Then you're not allowed to do it because it's a maaseh uman. You're not allowed to do a maaseh uman l'tzarech harabim if it's not a tzarech hamayid. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Yod Aleph, lo yasu. You're not allowed to go ahead and dig a new well if it's a maaseh uman, if they don't need it now. Lo yasu, says the Chavetz Chaim, hainu afilu lo kivnu malachta b'mayid v'gam b'tzina. Even though you weren't mechaven malachta l'mayid, you didn't intentionally plan to do this on Chol HaMoed, and you're ready to do it b'tzina. You know, you'll put up those green construction walls that the regulations in New York City make you put around every construction site. So you'll do this nice and quietly, b'tzina, and you weren't mechaven malachta l'mayid, still you're not allowed to do it because it's a maaseh uman. Maaseh uman, even though it's a tzarech harabim, you're not allowed to do it if it's not a tzarech hamayid. So if they don't need the new well now on the mayid, you're not allowed to do it. Ois Katan Yod Dalet. Oh, we didn't do yet. Now let's go further in the Mechaber, 5 lines down near the end of the line. Aval, however, boirois sichin u'ma'orois shal yochid. How about a well, a cistern, a water storage ditch that's for personal use, for a yochid? Then asar lachbar isa mechadash. You're not allowed to dig a new one, which is a maaseh uman. Va'afilu tzarech lehem ata, even if he needs it now on the moed. So for a yachid, for an individual, you want to dig a new well on Chol HaMoed, even if it's a tzarech hamayid, you're not allowed to do it because it's a maaseh uman. A yachid is only allowed to do a maaseh hedyot, even if it's a tzarech hamayid. For the rabim, you're allowed to do a maaseh uman if it's a tzarech hamayid. But for a yachid, you're only allowed to do a maaseh hedyot. Now let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here, nice cut in Yudala. This is very interesting. Says the Mishnah Berurah, va'afilu tzarech. Even if the yachid needs the new well now on Chol HaMoed, he needs it for the moed, he's still not allowed to do it because it's a maaseh uman. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Afilu ein loy ma yishte. Even if he doesn't have easy access to drinking water. Ela mipnei doichik harbe. He doesn't have a drinking water supply. In order for him to get drinking water, he's going to have to go now and schlep and take a bucket and go walk to who knows where and go get water and schlep it back to the house. Still, he's not allowed to do a Maisa Uman, to dig a new well. Chol HaMoed. He's still not allowed to do a Maisa Uman. Aser, it's aser. Caveat, the Mishnah Berurah says, Ve'em ein masik lishtois klal, if he simply has no way to get drinking water, mutter gam lachbar mechadesh b'mayid, then it's mutter for him to dig a new well on Chol HaMoed. Now, this is interesting. L'chayru, we have a very good question over here. L'chayru, you could ask a very good kasha. I would think, based on the halachas that we saw previously, that digging a well, even a Maisa Uman, there's a very good argument, l'chayru, to say that it should be mutter on Chol HaMoed. What's that argument? Well, drinking water is tzarich eichel nefesh. Now, you want to tell me that digging the well is not tzarich eichel nefesh. Okay, how about tzarich machshirei eichel nefesh? We learned before that machshirei eichel nefesh, you're allowed to do melachah, you're even allowed to do a Maisa Uman. For example, if you want to go build a new tanner, you want to build a new oven on Chol HaMoed so that you could cook on it and you could bake in it, you're allowed to do that. Even a Maisa Uman. Why? Because it's tzarich machshirei eichel nefesh. Tzarich machshirei eichel nefesh is mutter on Chol HaMoed, even a Maisa Uman. So how come this yachid who needs a well for his water supply, how come he's not allowed to dig it? Why is that a problem? So the Aruch HaShulchan writes a very interesting thing. The Aruch HaShulchan seems to say, he doesn't say this straight out, that really it should be mutter, like I just said, because it's tzarich machshirei eichel nefesh. Why is it aser? Says the Aruch HaShulchan, his words are, Dezehu kibinyan. Because going ahead and digging a new well, this is a construction project. The avshi milsa, it's something that's very public, it makes a lot of noise, everybody's going to know about it. The tircha yisera, and it involves a tircha yisera, v'lo yehutra liyachid. And therefore, it's not mutter for a yachid, for an individual to do. If it's a tzarich rabim, okay, it's a tzarich rabim. Tzarich rabim is mutter, even a Maisa Uman, if it's a tzarich HaMoed. But for a yachid, even though it's a tzarich HaMoed, and even though it's machshirei eichel nefesh, since it's avshe milsa, since it's something which is very public, and it's a terchi yisera, it's not mutter. Okay, that's the Aruch HaShulchan. Now, the problem that I have is, in Siman Taf Kuf Lamed Zayin, in Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tezvav, which is a Mishnah Berurah that I've quoted a lot lately, the Mishnah Berurah brings down a machlokes between the Pri Megadim. He brings down a Pri Megadim and a Ramban on the question of machshirei eichel nefesh. Is tircha yisera mutter for machshirei eichel nefesh? So the Pri Megadim said over there, he brought down the Pri Megadim, that's on Zayin Amid Beis, Siman Tavkov Lamed Zayin, Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Tezvav. The Mishnah Berurah brought down a Pri Megadim that says that tircha yisera is aser on Chol HaMoed for machshirei eichel nefesh. So according to that Pri Megadim, this Aruch HaShulchan is very good. The Aruch HaShulchan is saying, digging a new well, even though it's machshirei eichel nefesh, since it's tircha yisera, it's aser for a yachid. But the problem is that the Mishnah Berurah also brought down a Ramban, and the Ramban said that machshirei eichel nefesh, tircha yisera is mutter. So what do we do with that Ramban? So the truth is, I saw brought down from the Ramban brings down in this question of digging a well, the Ramban says if somebody needs a new well for tzarich HaMoed, he doesn't have what to drink, then he's taka allowed to do, even a Maisa Uman, to dig the well. Why? Because it's machshirei eichel nefesh. And if it's machshirei eichel nefesh, you're allowed to do it. But again, that's only if he doesn't have what to drink. Now the question is, why does it have to be such a dire situation that he doesn't have what to drink? If it's machshirei eichel nefesh, so even if he has what to drink, but this is going to make it easier for him. So okay, so it's tzarich machshirei eichel nefesh. He's drinking the water. What's the problem? Why can't he do it? And I think the answer lies in a Magid Mishnah. The Magid Mishnah says in Hilchas Yom Tov Perek Ches Halacha Daled, the Magid Mishnah wants to make a chilik between this case of digging a bar and regular Machshir Yochel Nefesh. And the truth is that this is a chilik that we've seen before. And that is, he wants to say that the digging of the bar is not Machshir Yochel Nefesh. Let's remember, we had a halacha. Whoops, let me turn the page. We had a halacha back in on Yud Gimel Amid Aleph in Siman Tuf Kuf Mem Aleph Sif Aleph. We said. If you want to make nets to catch fish, the Mechaber says Mutar Lasais B'Tzudais Dagim Me'arava. You're allowed to weave a basic net out of willow branches. Why? Because it's a Maisa Hedyet, Shu Maisa Hedyet. Avaloi ha'arugim echutim. But you can't do it out of thread, out of strings. Shehu Maisa Uman. Because that's a Maisa Uman. The Mishnah Berurah says over there, in Ice Cotton Bays, he says, wait a second. Why can't you do a Maisa Uman to make nets to catch fish? Why don't we say it's Machshire Yochel Nefesh? I'm going to eat the fish. So why isn't the net Machshire Yochel Nefesh, and then it should be mutter, even if it's a Maisa Uman? So the Chavetz Chaim says, V'loi heve bechlal Machshire Yochel Nefesh. No, making a net is not Machshire Yochel Nefesh. K'moi tanor, like building an oven. The mutter sham afilu Maisa Uman. That's mutter even to do a Maisa Uman. Why? Mishum deloi mikri machshirin, because we only call something Machshire Yochel Nefesh, eladavar ha-machshiroi la'achila, when you're dealing with something that prepares the food for eating. So a tanur, an oven, is Machshir Yochel Nefesh, because you use the oven to prepare the food. Manufacturing a knife is Machshir Yochel Nefesh, because when you have the knife, you're going to do shchita on the food with the knife. So you're creating something that's going to be used to prepare the food. Making a fish net, you don't use the fish net to prepare the fish. You use the fish net to catch the fish. Now you have the fish. Now you could prepare the fish for eating. Now you take the fish and you use a knife to cut it up and you put it in a pot to cook it. So the knife and the pot are Machshir Yochel Nefesh. But the net is not Machshir Yochel Nefesh. The net is another level removed. Says the Magid Mishnah, the same thing is true of the bar from Mayim, the well. The well does not prepare the water so that you could drink the water. The well is what gives you the water. The water cistern is what contains the water. Then you go ahead and you take the water. And if you want to cook it into soup, you cook it into soup. Or you want to drink it, you drink it. But the well does not prepare it for drinking. And therefore it's not Machshir Yochel Nefesh. And therefore, according to the Ramban, to do a Maisa Uman to dig the well on Chol HaMoed, you're not allowed to do it. It's not Machshir Yochel Nefesh. If you don't have what to drink, it's all right. If you don't have what to drink, then already the Ramban is willing to go ahead and be matir it. I guess it's enough of a Machshir Yochel Nefesh. If you don't have what to drink, you're matir it. The Aruch HaShulchan says that we're only matir digging the well with a Maisa Uman for a Yachid if it's Pekuach Nefesh. Him Pashit doesn't have what to drink. It's Pekuach Nefesh. Pekuach Nefesh, of course it's mutter. But the Aruch HaShulchan did not see another way to be matir digging the well for the Yachid with a Maisa Uman. Because he holds it's not, I guess he's going maybe either like the Prima Gadim, or he doesn't see that it's Machshir Yochel Nefesh at all. Okay. So that was Mishnah Berurah Ice Cut and Yud Dalet. Now we go back up to the Shulchan Aruch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down, right by the Ice Cut and Tesvav for the Mishnah Berurah. Let's say the Yachid had a well, the individual had a personal well or a personal cistern, and it just got messed up, it got clogged up with dirt. So im tzarech lehemata, if he needs the water supply now on Yom Tov, okay, so it's a tzarech HaMoed. If it's a tzarech HaMoed, mutter l'saknam. He's allowed to repair it with a Maisa Hedyet, because a Maisa Hedyet is mutter even for a Yachid if it's tzarech HaMoed. But v'im ein tzarech lehemata, if he doesn't need the water now, also l'saknam, then he's not even allowed to do a Maisa Hedyet because it's not a tzarech HaMoed. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut in Tezvav. V'mayu asuyim kvar, if he already has the bar, if he already has the well or the cistern, Ritzayin Lomar, what the Mechaber wants to say is, if he already has the well, he already has the cistern, does dai b'tikun ma'aseh hedyet ba'alma, then to repair it is only going to be a ma'aseh hedyet. And therefore it'll be mutter even for an individual, because tzarech hamoed is mutter for an individual if it's a ma'aseh hedyet. But if he doesn't need the water, also l'sakdam, then he's not allowed to repair the well even with a ma'aseh hedyet. To be yachid, because by an individual, I feel a ma'aseh hedyet aser. Kiyum l'tzarech hamoed. Even a ma'aseh hedyet is aser for a yachid if it's not l'tzarech hamoed. If it's l'tzarech hamoed, a ma'aseh hedyet is mutter. If it's not l'tzarech hamoed, even a ma'aseh hedyet is aser. Continues the Mechaber. Aval mutter lahamshich mayim l'saychan afilo ein tzarech lahem ata. You are allowed to direct water into your cistern or into your well, even if you don't need the water on the moed. So this is something that you're allowed to do even for a yachid, even if it's not a tzarech hamoed at all. Why is that? Says the Mishnah Berurah, very simple. He's cutting Yud Zayin. First, the Mishnah Berurah says something that's not simple. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what's the case over here? What does this individual want to do? Says the Chavetz Chaim here, a nice cutting Yud Zayin, Pirish, Shemekabelin me geshamim bekelim min agag. He's going to collect rainwater using something like a bucket from the roof. And he's going to transport it to the cistern and pour it into the cistern. That, says the Mechaber, you're allowed to do even if you don't need the water on the moed. Even though you don't need the water now. You have enough water in the cistern for the entire Yom Tov, so there's no tzarech hamoed over here. Still, the individual is allowed to take his bucket, go up to the roof, fill up the bucket with rainwater, carry it over to the cistern, and pour it into the cistern. Why is this mutter? Afilu achi mutter, says the Mishnah Berurah, lefi she'ein bazeh terech meruba, because this is not considered a tercha. There's not a lot of tercha involved over here, and it's not a melachah. What melachah are you doing? You're not doing any melachah. So it's not melachah, and there's no tercha. So why should it be aser on Chol HaMoed? Even if it's not l'tzarech hamoed, why would you aser it? There's no basis to aser this activity. Aval, says the Mishnah Berurah, lasois chritz, to dig a ditch, or lahavi mayim, in order to divert water to your cistern, or lahavi mayim derech sham, aser. That would be aser if it's not a tzarech hamoed. Why should it be mutter? It's not a tzarech hamoed, and it's a tircha. That's already a tircha. And it's also a melachah, chayfer. So that would be aser if you're not doing it l'tzarech hamoed. Now, I said that the Mishnah Berurah says over here something that to me is not simple at all. And that is the way the Mishnah Berurah understands the case of the Mechaber. Let's go back to the Mechaber. All the Mechaber said was, Aval mutter lahamshich mayim l'saychan. It is permissible, you're allowed to direct water to your personal water cistern on Chol HaMoed, afilu ein tzarech lahem ata, even if you have no need for the water on Chol HaMoed. Okay, the Mechaber doesn't describe exactly what it is that you're doing. He doesn't say what the case is. So the Mishnah Berurah says the case is, you're going to go up to your roof, you're going to collect rainwater in a keli, something like a bucket, you're going to transport it to your cistern, and you're going to fill up your cistern. And you're allowed to do this even though it's not a tzarech hamoed. And said the Chavetz Chaim, why is this mutter? It's mutter because there's no tercha. Now, here's the problem that I have with that. You're telling me that filling up water with a bucket and then transporting the water to your cistern is not a tercha. And it's so not a tercha that it's completely mutter on Chol HaMoed. Well, let's remember. We had a case earlier. We said that for a davar or ovid, you're allowed to do melachah on Chol HaMoed. What's the classical case? The case of the Mishnah. Mashkin beis hashlachin b'mayid. You're allowed to water your field. If you have a field that doesn't get sufficient rainwater, so that it must be watered manually, and if you don't water it manually, you're going to lose your produce, you're going to lose your crops, so it's a davar of it, so you're allowed to water it on Chol HaMoed. Oh, but how are you allowed to water it? The way you're allowed to water it is without a tircha. What does it mean without a tircha? You're allowed to go ahead with your foot, and you're allowed to make a little chritz, you're allowed to make an indentation in the ground to divert water from an irrigation canal over to your field. Are you allowed to go take a bucket and go fill up a bucket from a well and then take it over to your field and pour it into your field? No, that you're not allowed to do. Why? Because it's a tercha yisera. Well, wait a second. What are you doing? You're filling up a bucket of water, you're transporting it to your field, you're pouring it out on your field. That's usher even by a davar avud because it's a tercha yisera. But over here, you're allowed to fill up a bucket of rainwater from your roof, transport it to your water cistern, and pour it in. And why is it mutter? Because it's not a tercha at all. Says the Chavetz Chaim, it's mutter. You know why? She'ein bazeh tarech meruba. Because there's no tercha. What? I looked at this and right away I'm a little bit boggled. What do you mean? What do you mean there's no tercha? Now, if you take a look in the Sharitzion, Ois Cotton Tezayin, it could be that the Chavetz Chaim was bothered by this, but the Chavetz Chaim was boxed in by the Mefarshim, by the Achronim. Take a look in Sharitzion, Ois Cotton Tezayin. This concept that what's going on over here is that he's filling up a keli with rainwater on his roof. The Sharitzion, the Chavetz Chaim, brings this down from the Magen Avram, the Eliyahu Rabbah, and from the Eliyahu Rabbah. But Uber Ritva, Hevi Pirish Rashi, the Ritva brings Pirish Rashi in Moed Katan. V'hiskim Kain, and he agrees, the Ritva agrees with Rashi, Tahainu Dafke Shaloyal Yedei Kalim, that the only time this is mutter is if you're not filling up a keli and transporting it to your bar. The Imkain Teirich Gadol Hu, because if you are filling up a keli, that is a Teirich Gadol. Just like we said it's a Teirich Gadol by the Mashkin Beis HaShlachim. So then what's the Mechaber's case over here, when the Mechaber says it's mutter? Ella shemamshichim shama yedei chritz oy ama. What we were matir over here is the same thing that we're matir by the Mashkin Beis HaShlachim. You could make a little ditch or a little canal. V'hakavana, and what does that mean? You could make a ditch or a canal? Derak derech chritz oy ama hamisukanin mikvar. This mamish the same halacha as the Mashkin Beis HaShlachim. What's the halacha by the Mashkin Beis HaShlachim? You're allowed to direct water to your field that's a Beis HaShlachim if you already have some kind of an irrigation ditch, or if all you need to do is make a depression in the ground with your foot. But you want to dig a new chritz? You want to dig a new irrigation canal? You're not allowed to do that. Chol HaMoed, that's tercha yisera. So says the Ritva, that's the case over here in Moed Katan. The case that's mutter lahamshich mayim l'seichan, to fill up your water cistern, is using a pre-existing chritz, and maybe all you need to do is divert the water to the chritz somehow with your foot, or maybe you just need to clean the chritz out a little bit. So there's no tercha. That you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it even if it's not in Chol HaMoed. But to go take water and fill up buckets from your roof and bring it to your water cistern, that the Ritva says you're not allowed to do that. Now, yet, that is the way the Mishnah Berurah learned Pshat in the Mishnah Berurah. It's very nice that the Chavetz Chaim brings down this Ritva in the Sharitzion in the fine print on the bottom of the page. But in the Mishnah Berurah, he learned Pshat like the Magen Avram and the Eliyahu Rabbah, that it's talking about filling up a bucket on the roof. I assume the reason he did that is because he followed the commentary of the Poskim, of the Magen Avram and the Eliyahu Rabbah, who saw Rashi and saw the Ritva, and yet they learned Pshat this way. So he felt boxed in, the Chavetz Chaim felt boxed in by the Magen Avram and Eliyahu Rabbah, and he learned Pshat in the Mishnah Berurah like the Magen Avram and Eliyahu Rabbah. In the Sharitzion, in the fine print, he gives you Ritva and Rashi. Now, I was wondering if maybe we could say Pshat in the Magen Avram and Eliyahu Rabbah like this. When we learned the halacha of Mashkin Beis HaShlachim, we understood why is it called the tercha yisera, to fill up a bucket and water your field, water your Beis HaShlachim with a bucket. So I think we understood it on a very superficial level. It's one thing to use your foot and make an indentation in the ground and water your Beis HaShlachim that way. But now if you're going to have to go schlepping buckets of water, so you have to take a bucket, you got to fill it up, you got to schlep it back, you got to pour it, then you got to go, you got to refill it. Now it's a tercha yisera. That's the way we understood it. And if you understand it that way, then that halacha and this halacha of the Eliyahu Rabbah Magen Avram seems to be very, very difficult to understand. But I was thinking, maybe there's something deeper. Maybe the reason it's considered a terchi yisera by the mashkin beis hashlachin is because we have to put ourselves in the shoes, or in the boots, as you will, of a farmer. Buy a water cistern. All I need to do is go up to the roof, fill up the water bucket, go back down to the water cistern, pour it in. If I want to make 5 trips, I'll make 5 trips. But there's no chachma over here. All I'm doing is filling up a bucket, carrying it downstairs, pouring it out. Going back upstairs, filling up the bucket, going downstairs, pouring it out. That's not true when you're watering a field. When you're watering a field, you have to do a lot more than that. When you're watering a field, you got to go to the water cistern where you're drawing the water from. You got to go draw the water. Now you got to go back to your field, and now you have to look. Which part of the field needs water? Which part of the field doesn't need water? Where did I already pour enough water? Where didn't I pour enough water? This area is a little bit dry. On this area, the water is running off. It could be there's a much greater level of involvement watering your field by bucket than there is in filling up your water storage cistern by bucket. Also, besides the physical labor aspect, there's a much greater involvement in watering your field by bucket than in watering your field by making a depression in the ground and allowing the water to flow in. When you make a depression in the ground with your foot and you allow the water to flow into your field, you are not directing the water to any specific areas in the field. You are not going to go around and water the field. All you're doing is directing the water into the field. The water is going to do the rest of the work. The water is going to flow in, it's going to flood the field, and zahu. When you water by bucket, now you're going through your whole field, you're looking at everything, you're seeing everything, you're assessing the condition of the crops, you're assessing where it's wet and where it's dry. So it could be that there's a much greater reason why it's considered a terchi yisera to be mashke beis hashlachin with a bucket than it is to fill up a water cistern by bucket. Okay, that concludes Siman Tavkuf Mem Daled. That's where we are going to stop for today. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan on ganz Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should have rachmanus. The Rebbeinu Shalom should keep everybody safe. The Rebbeinu Shalom should bring a refuah to everybody who's not well. The Rebbeinu Shalom should end this magefa once and for all. We shouldn't have to think about it. We shouldn't have to talk about it. We shouldn't have to worry about it. The Berurah should bring back smiles onto everybody's faces. The Berurah should be misameach ganz Klal Yisrael. We should be zeicher to the bias kol tzedek b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.